welcome back to another episode of Power of the Mind, brought to you by Granite Mountain Behavioral Healthcare. Madi, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You're fitting in nicely. This is going great. So what do you want to talk about today? Because we're just tipping the iceberg. So what do you want to?
I want to talk about core beliefs and expand a little bit upon what we talked about last week.
Okay. So with core beliefs, like what do you mean by like core, like just kind of, I think this is great or that's great or whatever.
So a core belief is formed before the age of 8. And what it is it's a belief that hits to the root, hits to the core. Usually those beliefs are such, and they form, and they're usually, I'm unlovable. I have to take care of others at the expense of myself. I'm not enough. And it's finding out what your core belief is so you can better aid in finding out how to change that.
But there's an opposite to that too, right? There is, I am lovable. I am enough.
Absolutely.
And so this is definitely, would you say 100% environmental, or is there other factors that feed into these core beliefs? Or
So a core belief can be formed, like I'm going to mention what I mentioned last week, like about that girl when I said that she went to school and she was in 7th grade, roses are red, violets are black, and she went home and she was made fun of for her chest being flat, and she went home to try to talk to her mom, and her mom was on her cell phone. And the mom was ignoring her, and she's like, Mom, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And mom was like, hold on a minute. And then you think that the mom's being evil by not listening to her daughter, but you find out the mom just found out that her dad died on the phone. So the mom's trying to take care of herself too and the daughter, but a core belief was formed from the mom not paying attention to her.
so maybe it wasn't, she never paid attention to me, but that one time, and that shaped a part of who she was, because something that was so traumatic was handled in such a way.
Absolutely. And core beliefs can get formed from unintentionally from our parents, unintentionally from a sibling. But when they're formed, it's very difficult to challenge them and to change them because it's bringing to awareness that you even have that core belief. A lot of times people don't have the awareness of what is my core belief? What do I really believe that's harming me? What is that belief that's preventing me?
Awesome. So how would you know, like, what are your core beliefs? Like if you've got somebody in front of you and you're working with them, how would you kind of find out what kind of shaped them or molded them as a person?
So I would like, can I work with you first? I'd like to ask you
Sure.
what's your first 3 memories?
So I guess like growing up, I just remember one sitting on the couch with my dad and my mom asking me, it's bedtime, and my dad saying, nope, she doesn't have a bedtime. So I was, dad's favorite, which wasn't always good with mom. Um, I remember my mom cutting my hair super short because my dad liked my long hair, and almost drowning. So those are like 3 very early memories that are the cutting my hair one I totally had forgotten about until we started talking. And that was one to get back at my dad because I had really long, pretty hair. And so she cut it. And I do believe my mom totally loves me, but I think that was just that war. And she was young. She was 18 when she had me. So I don't think she was still a kid herself. So
Absolutely. So what I would make up from the drowning incident alone, expanding upon that, what do you remember about that?
the absolute most peaceful time of my whole life. It was cold, and not even cold, just like the perfect temperature of cold. It was calm. It was dark. I couldn't have been more than 6 years old. And I remember getting super mad when I was rescued, not because I was rescued, but because it was like I had this game in my pocket, these card game, and they were ruined. I was so upset about that. Not about almost drowning. I don't even know that I could understand that that was
Mhm.
what was happening. But, I always, people that, oh, what would be worse, drowning? I was like, oh, drowning would be awesome. It's the most peace. I don't remember panicking. I don't remember my lungs burning. And it was a bit before I got rescued because my mom and her friend were unloading stuff from the car. We were doing a picnic. And I, being always in charge, was told, take the kids, go play your game. And so they followed me down a path. And I just remember seeing like a dark, it looked like packed dirt to me as a kid. That's all I remember is like, we're going to go sit. It looks, straight. We're going to sit there and we'll play this game. And I just walked, bloop, and luckily she came over to check on us. And there was an older fellow that was like, panicked, and she jumped in. She said it took her about 3 times going up, getting air, coming back down, going up, getting air, and coming back down. And she happened to feel my hands. So I know I was struggling because I was moving my arms. I don't know if I was trying to swim, but the water was very thick. It was when I got up, I was covered with a lot of grass and heavy, like weeds almost.
So I would make up that you feel like as a child, you felt like you had to be perfect, that you
Oh,
felt like you had to carry the weight of others, even if they were neglectful of you, that you were fine on your own, and that you didn't need anybody to do anything. Basically, a
100%.
fierce sense of independence was formed, and the belief of, I can do it on my own. I'm fine.
100%. My whole life it's been this way. So in charge of everything, not great with following other people's direction, um, always in control. So, but yeah,
Do you thrive well among chaos?
um, I do very well with chaos. For me, it's my family always jokes that if mom panics, run
Mm-hmm.
because it's about to go down. So for me, if there's chaos, and I often wait till the last minute because I work better when we're up against the clock, when things are going crazy. That's when I notice with my cheer team too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thrive under pressure. Like, oh no, so and so got hurt. I've got to redo everything. Oh, this is where I rise. This is where it's like the best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I feel most secure. It's like, here we go. I get very bored when things are perfect all the time. I like control, but I
Mm-hmm.
also like the confrontation of like, let's go, let's attack this and
But the control is safe for you, right?
100%.
And it's been safe for you. It's where it's kept you comfortable and it's kept you surviving in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, that core belief of like, I can do it on my own. You've gained that fierce sense of independence that continues to, make you better. And you've used it as a means to see where you can thrive from it instead of letting it hold you back. Right.
100%.
And I think if I had to say, you've worked through a lot of trauma with your mom, a lot of trauma with your dad, a lot of what you already went through. You're on that healing journey already because it seems like those core beliefs aren't holding you back. You've seen how you can thrive with them.
I think for me, it's funny because if you ask me, and I've learned a lot just working through a lot of this with Greg on, just when we're talking about stuff and it comes out, I've never seen myself as a victim or any form of abuse growing up. And then the more we talk, it's like, okay, that's not how normal families are. That's not, a normal situation. But I've definitely molded my life around a sense of control, a sense of never depending upon anybody. I don't share well with others. I feel really bad for the coaches on the mat with me because it's, oh yeah, I need to tell them what I'm going to do. But I
Mhm.
so am like full force ahead and then pick up the pieces afterwards. But
Tunnel vision, it's go time.
it's go 100%.
You thrive in that moment of chaos because it's been what you learned how to do as a
Mm-hmm.
kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you had no other option than to keep thriving. You didn't let it bring you down.
Yeah.
You've built upon it.
Yeah. Which in my world, that's very normal as far as like, I almost appreciate my background because it's made me super strong, super independent. I have a husband who loves me more than anything in the world, but I know that, there's never do I want a world without him, but I could handle myself. I can take care of myself always. I could take care of my kids. I could, that was always very important to me because I lived a life where, the women around me were very dependent upon men in their life. And that
Mhm.
was and I got married young. I was married at 17. So to say that I don't need no man, that's crazy. But I do for companionship, but I will always make sure, you know, I make my money. And it's our money, it's our life, it's our home, but I will always make sure. And it's not even a matter of pride with me, like, oh, look how much money I make. It's just who I've always been. It's I will always find a way. So
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing that you always find a way.
yeah.
I think that sometimes with core beliefs, people get stuck in them, and often get stuck in the trauma where they struggle coming out of it. Being able to identify what their even core belief is, your level of self awareness really shows.
So my other thought was too, because I know my mom loved me and my sister and loves me and my sister. I mean, she was my best friend growing up. After I became a certain age, I really but it was also very caregiver, and not even like medical caregiver, but it was always like, Leisha, I need this, or help me with this. And so it was always that way with my mom, always making sure she was taken care of. And then with my sister, and then with my dad. But I appreciate that because it made me like the opposite as a mother. Like I made sure and but to a fault. Like I've been so protective of my kids and so no, 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 don't make them do that, or oh no, it's okay. And to a fault,
Mhm.
I've not been that mom that's like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you go figure it out. It's like, what do you need? I got you. Yeah. Oh, you don't have enough money to make it till rent, or to make it till next payday. Here you go. So
You're creating that safe place that you didn't have to let them know that they can rely on you. Who did you feel like you had to rely on as a kid?
oh, nobody. I mean, I could tell stories of, after it was my grandma. And I don't like talking about my grandma too much because I will cry. But with grandma, it was, I didn't always like to bother grandma, but I knew when it was time, it was like, okay, it's been 2 days. Nobody showed up to check on us. Nobody's been here. I'm calling grandma. And within 5 minutes, here comes grandma. She's running. But I always gave my mom the benefit of the doubt. Like, she's going to show up. She's going to be here, So it was, yeah, but grandma was always that protector.
Mhm.
So, but she was that way for everybody. Like, she was fierce.
A little
So,
angel.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So she was always my, yeah, grandma.
Do you feel
So.
like you've taken things from your grandma that she has showed you about showing up for your kids and use that as a means to let me be the rock star like my grandma?
100%. My daughter called me one day. She had just had her baby and she didn't even call me. It was the baby's dad. And he's like, you need to talk to your daughter. And I knew she wasn't in a great situation. And the baby was, I think, about 5 days old. And so my daughter got on the phone and I said, how's it going? And she's like, it's good. So when we come pick you up, she goes, yep. So I'll be there in 2 hours. It took me 2 hours. And I joke, my house is the revolving door. Like at one time or another, every one of my kids has lived there multiple times. We've had 12 people living in my house at one time. We've converted the garages. We've done everything, but my kids will always know that there is a safe place for them, no matter what. So
you're breaking that generational trauma. That's amazing.
yeah.
That shows that the cycle is ending with you.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing to create for your loved ones and yourself.
Yeah, but she's crazy. She's like, I am a very, like my kids, if they are farther than this far from me, it is like my daughter moved to Flagstaff a couple hours away and that killed me, so, and then she moved back, but I feel sometimes I'm creating too much of a
dependence.
Yeah. So, and it's like, I'm okay. Like, I don't feel that I need to be with them obviously every second, but the thought of any of them moving away or being far, especially when grandkids are involved, oof, that's too much. That's why we moved to Arizona, because one of my kids moved to Arizona. So
you love being a grandma, huh?
I love being a grandma, but she was also married to a narcissist. So that's a whole nother story, but I've got to go protect my kids.
They're lucky that they have you to show up for them, though.
Yeah.
And that you can show up and really show up.
So what I'm hearing is your core beliefs, they are what they are, whether they're legitimately core beliefs, if it's something that was perceived, but it forms who you are, and it can go positively for me, which I think, I mean, there's issues. Obviously, I'm an overdoting mother, but there can also, I'm assuming, very negative.
Absolutely. I'll share some personal information of where my core belief affected me for years until I had to acknowledge it and identify what it was. So when I was 8 years old, um, my best friend and I, named Shayna, it was a really terrible day. It ended up with my best friend accidentally getting shot by her brother. And I made up the belief that I'm bad, I'm incapable, and I'm evil, and that bad things happen when people are around me.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I lived with that, and I kept people at an arm's length distance because I was afraid I was bad, and I inherently believed that I was bad. So I didn't have those people around me to tell me it's okay for you to make a mistake, accidents happen. But as many times as I did hear that, it didn't change it
Mm-hmm.
because it imprinted me so much that I lived with that of I am bad for so long until I made peace with my past. It controlled me. And so living in that trauma, it kept me from getting close to people. It kept me from my self-confidence, my self-worth, but being able to really come to peace with my trauma and really make friends with the part of me that I didn't like, I was able to heal from it and realize, hey, an accident happened. I'm not bad. I'm not a bad person.
How did you get through that though? Did you have to go to therapy? What was the best way to, was it therapy?
Yeah, absolutely therapy. A lot of therapy. I was a troubled adolescent after that. My siblings say like a switch went off right after that for me. Um, I was in pageants prior to that. I didn't want to be in pageants anymore. I stopped talking, so my parents got me in with a child psychologist, and it affected me until honestly I worked through it when I got sober in '09. Um, I had a miraculous therapist who did a psychodrama, which a psychodrama is like where you reenact something. And what she did, because I never got to go to Shayna's funeral because I ran away, she created a funeral for me to be able to say goodbye to her.
Oh, wow.
And she did a mock funeral, and I got to make peace with that part because I lived with so much guilt of not going to her funeral. And then I was able to make friends with that part of me again that had the ache and meet it with compassion this time instead of shame. That's how I had to get through it, was I had to walk through it. I had to not ignore it, and a lot of therapy.
Well, and the way I think about it too is, I always joke that these are my therapy sessions. And one time I was talking to Greg about like regressed feelings, like
Mhm.
memories that you don't think about. Like the haircut thing, when we had talked about, a little bit about this before, and I totally had forgotten about the haircut, but then all of a sudden sitting here, I was like, oh, that was a big one for me. But I was like, Greg, I don't want to remember things. If my brain is doing a really good job of putting them down below the surface and I don't have to think about them, why on earth would I waste, or not even waste the time, but why on earth would I want to confront that? And he made the perfect analogy of like a beach ball trying to hold it underwater and all that stress and tension, where I thought my childhood was great. I thought, everything's fine. I'm, straight A student, top of my class. My dad loves me fiercely and crazy. And I just, but therapy can open you up to so many things that I didn't even know I was dealing with things until we talked about them. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, holy cow. Like there are things that bubble up. Greg was like, they can create a safe space for you to bring those feelings forward or those things that you've pushed down, and you can deal with them as opposed to spending so much energy holding them down and then them coming up at the worst possible time when you're not prepared to handle it.
Mhm.
Is that kind of something you've seen or?
Absolutely. If you don't work through it, your kids will have to work through it. If you don't work through it and you don't face it, you're going to eventually have to, because you can only avoid denying yourself these true feelings for so long until it comes to a point where you have to look at it. You're not giving another option, right?
Right.
And sometimes that's just bringing awareness to the table. Like, what do you think your resistance in wanting to remember was?
I think for me, it's everything's perfect, right? Everything was fine. My dad loved me. My mom loved me. She still loves me. My dad still loves me. My sister and I got along fine. Um, it was normal, I guess, to have this crazy stuff happening all the time and the chaos in my life. But there's a perception of me that is very strong and independent, and I'm a leader in everything that I do. And heaven forbid anybody see or me even come to terms with things that I really didn't think were big deals,
Mhm.
but really shaped who I was.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like I still am under the core belief for me, if there are things that I'm not remembering, I'm a pretty strong person and my brain does really well at protecting me.
Mhm.
There's reasons that I haven't remembered.
Mhm.
And I'm still okay with that. I'm still
Mhm.
like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm totally good with that. If there's more stuff, I'm good. Like I think but I've I like who I am. There are things where I'm like, girl, you could calm down in this area. You could do better with people in this area. But I'm pretty solid and I'm older too. But had I known people like you or Greg or even believed in therapy 20 years ago,
Mhm.
30 years ago, this would have been so much better for me. Or even in school, like they have therapists in school now to talk to kids. That was unheard of back in my day. Like, girl, you're sad, stop. Like
Put on your big girl panties.
yeah, it wasn't even like addressed. Like you didn't walk into the house and say, "Gosh, I'm so sad. I need to deal with my feelings."
Mhm.
What? We're I laugh now because it's such a topic. I'm from the generation where the commercials would run at 9 and 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? No, they don't know where their kids are. They're out running the streets. They're out running around. They have no idea. So for me, therapy is such a like, right, who needs therapy?
Mhm.
And now, like, doing this, gosh, I think it should be almost mandatory for everybody to get therapy, even if you think it's awesome, if you think it's wonderful.
Mhm.
So,
It can bring a whole level of self-awareness where you can grow. It is just bringing awareness to what needs looked at,
mhm,
and it's, like the hero role for you. It's like you still are in it in a sense, but you're
mhm,
thriving through it.
right.
You've made peace with the parts of you that you were struggling with, you know, and you continue to persevere through those beliefs, and you know that you're a rock star, you know? That's like another thing is like without therapy, like what led you to be able to overcome it?
I think just because I was a mom so young and, um, a wife so young that it was just you have to today is the day. My dad is very strong. My dad's very independent, and I know I get that from him. And watching the opposite with my mom being very weak and very dependent upon people, that was just not an option. So um yeah, I think that was just the only thing for me. But I love that therapy isn't taboo.
Mhm.
Like I have, their parents say, oh, she's got therapy today, she'll be a little late to practice, or he's doing this. It's like, great. Like it's just normal.
Mhm.
And I think that's awesome.
They're bringing mental health awareness more and more, and I think that's so needed for a community to build upon, so we can give more empathy and bring more awareness to people's struggles. Instead of just put your big girl panties on, right?
Yeah.
Now it's looking at it and saying, like, what does this person need? It's meeting the people where they're at rather than where we want them to be. Some of the
Yeah.
best therapists have shown me it's about meeting a person where they're at, not where you want them to be, right there where they are. and helping them grow from that. So
Yeah.
it's coming to terms with those parts. And sometimes it's not coming to terms with that part. Sometimes it's just processing through it and
Yeah.
getting to a place where it no longer controls you, where those core beliefs no longer hold you back, and they can serve as an anchor rather than make you drown in it,
Mhm.
you know?
So if somebody's listening and would you ask them, close your eyes for a minute, think about those core beliefs, and have you dealt with those? Have you figured out why those did these core beliefs, those three earliest memories, mold you into who you are? And have you dealt with that? Is it a good thing? Do we need to talk to somebody? Is that kind of where you would kind of steer somebody right now and just,
Absolutely. And like, where's it holding you back? What are you being held back by? Because just like Greg had used that analogy with you with the beach ball, like, and pushing it down, you grow so much resistance. And there's only so much you can do till that ball just pops right up,
mhm,
right?
smacks you right in the head, right?
Smacks you right at in the face,
Yeah.
and it tells you like this is needed. And if something's coming up, a feeling, or you're remembering something, it's coming up because it needs to, because something in you needs healing, something in you needs attention, and it's giving yourself what you need now. And sometimes that is therapy, sometimes it's talking to a trusted friend.
Are you guys able with Granite Mountain? Are you able to take calls from people that because I know you've got various, clinics, but if somebody's listening to this and they're out of town or, they're not around, can they still call your line or talk to you? Or is that how that would work? Or,
So they would need to for any therapeutic advice, they would need to get signed up through services.
okay.
And then we could provide services once they're signed up.
Okay.
But we can't until we have the intake completed and until someone's been admitted.
So they can reach out to you for, admitted, that doesn't necessarily mean they're like admitted into a hospital. It's admitted into like,
The
you're
level
in.
of care sometimes, so we have a couple levels of care. So we have a residential facility, and the residential is a 30-day, usually it's 30 days, sometimes it goes over, program where they live there. It's residential, it's the highest level of care. And then there's our IOP program where you start to get a job, where you start to learn how to work and stay in recovery. And it teaches you more about balance. And then we have our outpatient program, which is long term sober living, or they can live on their own. We have people that live in Flagstaff that do Zoom meetings. It's about really meeting the patient where they're at and what they need. Outpatients, they can live at their home. They can do therapy once a week. They can do it up to 9 hours a week. So it's about meeting the patient where they're at, though.
And how would they get a hold of you if they wanted to start that process?
They can call Granite Mountain's phone number, or they can reach out to me directly.
Okay, and we always include those phone numbers for anybody that's listening right on the um, podcast for you, so they've got that information. And then if they're not in an area where they can, get a hold of you, just reach out, right? Just, I mean,
Absolutely.
Google search, find somebody, but definitely it's for somebody who's never thought about mental health or therapy, do it. Definitely do it. If you just, good, bad, you're going through things or things seem great, but you just got something there, you just want to talk to somebody. Because just talking to somebody, just being heard sometimes, because no matter, I think a lot of us, we spend a lot of time, talking and nobody ever stops to really listen. It's like, hey, how are you doing? Great. They didn't really want to know. They're just
Mhm.
polite to ask. So,
Everyone's on autopilot, and it's coming to the part of you that maybe you don't know how to talk about. You just start, and that's okay. Just someone you trust, someone you feel like you can be transparent with.
awesome. Well, close your eyes, think about those core beliefs, and figure out how that's affecting who you are, why you are, and how's it going. And in the meantime, if you need to talk to somebody, reach out to Granite Mountain Behavioral Healthcare. It's .com. We'll get that all that information in there. reach out to Maddie. You're awesome. Love having you here. And I think we're going to end it right there and pick up where we left off next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.